When we first started streaming, nobody was going to the internet for great content. They were going to content, right? They were going to the internet for free content. And most watched, the most talked about, the most award-winning movies and films in the world are premiering on streaming. And that's, that's a remarkable transformation in a very short time.
So lovely to see you again. So lovely to have you on the front row. Thank you so much for making the time.
I'm happy to. Happy to.
I want to start by just sharing some numbers. And I'm reading this out, everyone, so I get it all right. Netflix currently has 209 million paid members in over 190 countries. The platform has won 93 Oscar nominations and 752 Primetime Emmy nominations, which includes 129 nominations for this year alone.
Thank you.
Which is astounding and which also justifies the title of this session, Ted, Tastemaker of the World. So I want to begin by talking to you a little bit about this impeccable taste of yours. You have spoken in interviews before about your childhood, about what a critical role television played, and how you would stay up till 2 a.m. Watching TV. And then, of course, later you worked at a video library and, sort of developed an encyclopedic knowledge of cinema. But in the last 20 plus years, 21 years, Ted, that you've been at Netflix, how have you honed these creative instincts? As the money and the power and the fame has accelerated, how have you nurtured that taste?
Well, first of all, I get a lot of credit for what's happening in terms of taste making, but I have an incredible team. All over the world who have incredible local taste and local relationships and are really the matchmakers to the world that my actual role in all that has kind of boiled down to, I used to literally pick everything that was on Netflix. And now it has boiled down to I pick the people who pick the people who pick the people that goes what's on Netflix. So and then every once in a while I get to dabble in and take the lead on a project that I will, that will get to me uniquely and that I will just fall in love and champion. But for the most part, what you're seeing on Netflix is, this incredible team of creative executives around the world who just, who live and breathe this the same way I do and love the storytelling and the storytellers and love being part of a global audience more than anything.
Are you saying that you don't watch as much as you did back then, or are you not as involved?
No, I definitely do. I have to discipline myself to let folks make the decisions, because I really want people, the people famously at the Netflix culture, people talk about freedom and responsibility, right? Yeah. And with that has to come, that responsibility part is important. So it'd be very difficult for me to understand how well people are doing if I was making the decisions or overriding decisions, and I'm definitely involved in the day-to-day with them as well. But at the most, I want these decisions to be owned by the folks who brought them to the table. And so helping, the role that I could do today is to, help them hone those skills and hone those relationships and manage those relationships in a way that creators have the best experience of their lives at Netflix, so that they're more likely to bring us their next story. The one thing I really miss the most about, right now during this entire COVID quarantine is not flying. That's where I used to get the most time watching. On long flights, I would fill most of that time with watching. So now I have to discipline myself to shut everything off and go to another room and just watch uninterrupted. That's what I so much love about being on the plane, is that it's you can put headphones on and disappear into the storytelling in a way that's difficult to do with a lot of other distractions around you.
But Ted, with the people who you're picking, how do you sort of get them to cultivate their taste?
A lot of it is, you pointed out my experience in that video store. So this goes back, early 80s. But in that time, I just had the luxury that I had at that time was access. So, it was pretty unlikely in this very kind of middle lower class neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona, that there was a video store in that video store, which really was the archive of, of decades of cinema that otherwise would never have been available to me through any other channel. No movie theater was showing. There's no revival house. There were no art house cinemas anywhere near me. So that was an incredible luxury for me to have access to that store. When I got a job there, I got to watch the movies for free. That was even better. And so for me, like that now, look at flash forward to today, any cinema lover, anyone who works in this industry has access to everything ever made at the press of a button, and they could watch it on their phone in their car if they want. So, I mean, there's never been better access to the history of cinema than today. And the thing that I really try to encourage the team to do is you have to root your taste, you have to root your conversation with filmmakers in their work and the work that influenced them, and speak in the language of cinema with filmmakers, so that when they make when Martin Scorsese made obscure references about 2 other films when we were making The Irishman, I knew about 20% of them. And I feel like, and I thought I was really good. But the main thing is just take advantage of this incredible time in our life where we have access to this film libraries from everywhere in the world. Like for me, if not for the internet, and probably, some mix of the internet and DVD back then, I wouldn't have known who Bong Joon-ho was when he came to when we had the opportunity to make Okja.
You brought up Martin Scorsese and Bong Joon-ho, and you also worked with Alfonso Cuarón and David Fincher. I mean, the greatest storytellers in the world, right? So walk us, Ted, through a little bit of that process. Like, do you give notes, or what is that back and forth like?
Like, I think the most accomplished creators in the world understand that filmmaking is a collaborative process. There are situations where the director is God on set, but when it gets when you get into post-production and work, polishing the film itself, they're mostly looking for a sounding board, and the more educated you could be about that, the better. So I think for them, it's like, I heard a great quote from Ron Howard, the director Ron Howard, where he said that because someone was commenting to him positively how collaborative he was, and he took a lot of input on set from a lot of people, and all over many people, from people working on costume design and makeup or whatever, people have an idea. And he said something I thought was so beautiful was, I'm looking for better ideas. I'm not looking for different ideas, but I'm always looking for better ideas.
I read that you said yes to The Crown without a pilot. How do you know when you have a hit on your hands? And I mean, is it like a tingling? What happens to you when you feel like this film or this show sounds exactly right? And at what point in the process do you feel it? Is it instant? Do you have to let it marinate? How does it work?
There are times, look, I think when you think about this, something that comes in like a pitch, and that was a pitch. Peter Morgan came to Netflix with this concept, and the concept was always huge. It was always 6 seasons, 60 hours, each season would be a decade in the life of Queen Elizabeth. And starting with her untimely for her rise to become the young queen. And then presumably through her entire life back when we first heard the story. Now I think she may outlive all of us. The good advice was to think about things that are not out there. Think about worlds that have not been deeply explored, that people that you would like to see. So I think what are the worlds that you want to spend some time in, and who are the people you want to spend all this time with? 60 hours is a long time. So I'm going to spend 60 hours with this family. I'm going to spend 60 hours in this world. Is it worth my time? And I could have listened to Peter Morgan in that pitch for 60 hours just listening to the pitch. I knew that this was going to be a rich, detailed world that people would lose themselves in. And that I was sure 10 minutes into the pitch.
No,
but it isn't always that clear. Yeah, it isn't always that clear. Stranger Things was something, as an example. The pitch was radically different than where the ultimate show turned out to be, but you were really betting on the creative vision of these complete newcomers at the time, what the Duffer Brothers were. So, but there's other times that you really are just taking a instinctual bet on the creator, even if the material itself isn't quite there yet.
Have you ever said yes to a show, Ted, that you weren't 100% sure of, but then it worked out really well? Has there been those ones where your instincts were actually going the other way?
I do think in this world is like a lot of time it's bets. You really are making creative bets on creative people, and giving them resources to bring their vision to light. So I think a lot of people have really big ideas. It's a real gift if you can then bring that idea to screen. And so a lot of times from the pitch process, you could be totally sold on the pitch. And then an example of a show that I thought would be so much bigger was Sense8, which we really love. And there was nothing creatively wrong with Sense8 at all. I think if we did it all over again, I would have loved to have, if I would have the confidence today to have the people in each country speak the local language.
Ted, you said that your vision for Netflix is to make local stories global. And you said that it's the opposite of cultural imperialism, which I love that. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the typical thing to be anxious about a company like Netflix coming onto the scene is this: are we just going to be another exporter of Hollywood content around the world? Rehashing stories for the world, and it never really made sense to me that so much of the world's entertainment was coming from in English and from America, and it's mostly just because we're a big media market, so there was enough money to put into production that made it very attractive to viewers around the world. Which there's nothing wrong with that model, except for we are our stories, we are our history, we are our food, we are our language. Around the world, and I think that our culture, our films should reflect that, and our television, our storytelling should reflect that. It starts, I don't think any young child, most of them are not read stories from other places; they're read local stories. So they are at a very young age attuned to their own culture, and then we don't get to see. And then the problem is, because of that, we don't get to see other cultures much. So in the U.S., because of this embarrassment of riches in terms of programming and content, there was really it was a very niche behavior to watch foreign language content in the US. So we actually wind up by championing local storytellings from anywhere to the world. One of the great benefits of that is in America, our viewing of non-English content has gone through the roof. So our local language content, dubbed and subtitled into English, now is being watched at times, in 100 times greater than what it used to be. Our Korean language content, maybe thanks to Parasite and Bong, I love the line that he said at the Oscars around, getting over the 1-inch wall of subtitles. But it's been, the fandom, our biggest show that we launched in the entire world in the first quarter of the year was Lupin from France. So that is like storytelling from anywhere to the world. Our work in India has just begun. We are working with local storytellers. We announced our biggest slate of original content that's continuing to grow. Our films right now that have been, some of them have been very, very popular, obviously with our Indian members. Jagame Thundiram is one that's incredibly popular. Haseen Dilruba was in our top 10 in 22 different countries. So when you think about, you think about, and that's, to me, is like the real possibility of exporting culture and exporting the storytelling and helping the planet, this big, scary place, feel a little smaller and safer because we know each other.
The other thing that I thought was amazing is the Netflix diversity study, which was released in February. How did you, Ted, get the idea of getting a third party to sort of assess the diversity in Netflix? And it's such a wonderful step towards making showbiz a slightly more equitable place. And is that something that you see rolling out in India?
Yeah, I think, look, having underrepresented storytelling on screen is so important. I mean, and by the way, it's good business too. It feels good, obviously, but it's very good business that your content reflects your audience. So how do you get closer to the audience is tell stories they relate to. put people on screen that they recognize. And I knew, obviously around the world, the entertainment industry tends to be a little clubbish. Is that a nice way to say it? The folks who've been
yes, you're very polite.
yes. So the folks who've been doing it are the folks who keep doing it. And so in general, we have to, figure out ways to get people who've not got an opportunity to tell their stories behind the camera, in the writer's room, on screen. And the way to do that, I think, is to make sure that your executive team also represents your audience and make sure you have plenty of diversity on the teams so that they recognize folks. But what I wasn't sure is, what I wanted to do, first of all, was say there was a lot of speculation about, how we were doing. And I think every time you'd have a little bit of a breakthrough. One of the things I've been very proud of is think about a movie like Mudbound. That story basically was, it was extremely popular, was nominated for 4 Oscars, but it's also the first that were in there. Rachel being the first woman to be nominated as a cinematographer at the Academy Awards in 90 years. Dee Reese, being the first African-American co-nominee for the screenplay. I mean, it's like it goes on and on and on, the first that came out of that movie. But all those little anecdotes we would definitely celebrate as breakthroughs. But in total, I couldn't really answer the question, how were we doing? So we went to a third party. We made a commitment to ourselves and said, let's have somebody go through every minute of our original content for the last 3 years and judge us on 20 different diversity indicators and see how we're doing. And no matter what they come up with, we're going to publish. And we're going to commit to revisiting it every 2 years and see how we're progressing. So we basically needed to start with a baseline. So by doing that, we went to the third party. And I think by committing ourselves to publish the number, it held our feet to the fire. And not that anyone was fighting it. It's just that I just think it gave everybody a real sense of what success was.
Ted, speaking of India, there's been a considerable amount of churn in the last 2 months in Netflix India. And of course, there's been a lot of publicity around that. I saw one article that said, the headline was, has Netflix fumbled India? What is your response to that?
We are just starting in India, as you know. And I do think that, it's very easy to look at these things and think, that we make it look easy, I think. And it's not, it's very hard. And I think it's, when we launch, and one thing we learned in each country we launched in, we had a magic day, one day where we flipped a switch and we launched in 130 countries. But that was just that you could, if you had an international credit card, if you spoke English, if you had a fast internet connection, you could use Netflix. But that was basically what our global launch was back then. But prior to that, we used to launch country by country by country. And when we did that, what we found out is as good as you can be in one country, it tells you almost nothing about the next one.
Yeah.
So you really have got to focus on how do you make Netflix as passionately connected with members in India as they are in Indiana. Is this the content they can't live without? Are these the movies that they love? Are these the TV series that they get lost in? And that is different for every culture and around the world. And it takes time. And I wish that there was a shortcut. There's a trial and error period that I'd say that we've been deep in right now, which is, at first your first instinct is to deliver to the members in that country the thing that everyone's watching in that country. And then you find out is like, no, people are really looking for something else. And that's why they join Netflix. So then you go the other way. And then when they find something that they like, and then the one thing I think that has resonated quite well has been our introduction into kind of a more cinema infused television which I think was fairly novel for India at the time, investing very big production value in television storytelling. So I look at Sacred Games and Delhi Crime as 2 examples of that I think has kind of kicked off a new age of television in India. And of that, I'm very, very proud. And then we're continuing to grow and we're continuing to connect with audiences. But the key is these have got to be the films and the shows that you love. And we're still figuring that out in the US where we're deeply penetrated. But being a matcher of stories to audience and a tastemaker, using your very generous example, it's hard work. and it's very fluid. So what's really great this year is out of fashion next year. And how do you tell those stories that stand the test of time? And in that around the world, I've been very proud of that work, and we just keep getting better and better at it. And I think in India, is just like everywhere else, we're committed to getting better and better at it.
Now, I know you don't sleep very much at night, but is there anything that keeps you up? Is there anything that sort of gives you anxiety?
You know, it keeps me up in a good way only. And that honestly, I wish, I know it's more dramatic to be, hand wringing, but I spring out of bed in the morning. I am ready because and today I've been at Netflix for 21 years, and this is the most important and the most exciting time in our history. The folks who have entered into one of the things that have really changed in dramatically has been this kind of explosion of streaming. For this thing that just, think about how slow change comes in the movie business, in the television business, and how incredibly transformative streaming has been around the world. In the US, and I used to use the US because it's our most mature market and it's our most penetrated market. We're in more homes in the US than any other. In the US, about streaming, watching content on streaming on your television now has surpassed broadcast television as the way as the time spent. And Netflix, believe it or not, of that big pie, Netflix is still only about 7% of that total watching in the United States. So the opportunity to engage with consumers in content that they can't live without, 93% of that time is spent, on other things, not other streamers, but playing video games or being online, you name it, and then or linear media consumption. So what all these new players that are coming into the marketplace, they are chipping away at this kind of linear media consumption, which is making streaming bigger and bigger. And with that comes this expectation of high quality, which didn't used to exist. When we first started streaming, nobody was going to the internet for great content. They were going to content, right? They were going to the internet for free content. And
cat
today,
videos, yes.
Yes, exactly, cat videos. And then today, the most watched, the most talked about, the most award-winning movies and films in the world are premiering on streaming. And that's a remarkable transformation in a very short time. And I'm so excited because you think about, we have about 200 million subscribers. You figure there's about 800 million, 900 million pay TV households around the world. So we are in our infancy in terms of delivering on this business promise and this creative promise to the world, and the fact that we're having this conversation today is super exciting, and the fact that we could do it this way is pretty exciting. I wish I could jump on a plane and come see you, but the fact that we have this opportunity is great, and I think that it also contributes to giving consumers control of their schedule, control of their life, control of their screens. And I think that, in the last year and a half or so, we've learned how important that control is.
So Ted, I have to talk. It's July and the Cannes Film Festival has just wrapped. So how can we not talk about the famously contentious relationship with Cannes? At the press conference, Ted, Thierry Fromeau said that, name one great director who's been discovered by a streaming platform. What do you respond to that with?
First of all, I should tell you that 100% Thierry and I are brothers. We both, as you know, share a passion for cinema and for storytellers and storytellers and telling. And the only thing that happened between Netflix and Cannes is they changed the rules. So I just told Thierry, I don't want to bring our films if we are uniquely excluded from competition. And my first year in Cannes, we brought Meyerowitz Stories and Okja. We had a remarkable experience. It is incredible to be on that red carpet. It's a really magic moment for a film lover. And there's no periods of contention between us except for they changed the rules. And I hope that those, maybe what's the good thing that will come out of this change in distribution that, as a result of the COVID quarantines and theatrical shutdowns, our releasing model doesn't seem very radical anymore. Right? I mean,
That's true.
most things are day and date, or 7 days before, or 14 days before, but nothing has those long exclusive windows anymore. And this idea that that we're kind of uniquely excluded, I didn't like that for our filmmakers, and I didn't like that for our members. So, but Cannes is still a remarkable place to discover great film festivals in general. It's a great system from discovery. I don't know particularly why Terry wanted to call out that. First of all, Ken's been at this for 75 years, and we've been making our own original movies for about 3. So we've got some work to do for sure. But I would be remiss not to point out that that Terry was actually kind of a little bit wrong. I'm just pointing out quickly, when last year there's a young filmmaker named Stefan Bristol, who we took directly out of film school at NYU, introduced to me by Spike Lee, who made his first feature called See You Yesterday, that won the Independent Spirit Award, was nominated for another, and he's going to be an amazing new voice. And remember, we're in a 3-year window, not a 75-year window. This year, we've got an incredible James Samuel, who's first-time director, making this big feature film called The Harder They Fall, that's coming up later this year, that's going to really blow people away. And the other thing to keep in mind is, while the discovery process really is kind of the role of a film festival, ours is connecting that new voice with an audience. I think we obviously play an important role. So does Cannes, so does Terry, so does Venice. And it's a really great ecosystem of discovery that I'm proud to be part of.
Speaking of Venice, Ted, he's critical of other festivals because he said that they open the doors too widely to people we're not sure about. We're not sure that they really want cinema to survive. Ted, do you really want cinema to survive?
Of course we want cinema. We make movies to keep movies alive. I'm telling you, the model, the art form itself is what we're engaged in, right? Not the distribution model. We're making it easy for people to get to reach these stories. That's what's going to keep cinema alive. You cannot be dependent on so many third and fourth party systems to make art and make storytelling and make commerce. You really have to be able to do this. That way you can focus the filmmakers on just making great film. We've had 5 Oscar-nominated best pictures in 3 years. So we're investing, our investment in film and filmmakers and filmmaking continues to grow dramatically. We work with all the same filmmakers that he loves. We make their dreams come true by bringing projects to the screen that couldn't come to the screen. Martin Scorsese is one of the most accomplished filmmakers of our lives, and we made Irishman because he had spent a decade trying to make Irishman in the old system. So I'm a movie like White Tiger. Imagine now that there was not, the system wasn't knocking down the doors to make that movie. And that's the thing that I think that I'm very, very proud of, is that the system was failing a lot of these filmmakers trying to break through and get their stories told on screen. And that we, maybe because we can create more opportunity, maybe because subscription's a better monetization tool for movies than movie tickets and DVD sales and VOD sales and all those things that have traditionally funded cinema. And it's just the times are changing. And I do think if you don't change with them, they will leave you behind and something else will take over. And we have to keep cinema vibrant and alive and funded so that fans have a place to go and watch movies, regardless of where that screen is.
And speaking of the next thing taking over, so there's lots of buzz about Netflix and gaming. What is happening there? What can you tell us?
Well, I think gaming is is part of storytelling. At its core, gaming is world building and storytelling, which is what we do all day. So this is a kind of a natural evolution. The way we first started making kind of premium prestige series like House of Cards, and then since then we've expanded to unscripted and documentary and feature film and interactive. So it's a really nice progression to get to eventually where you'll get to games too, to be included in the kind of variety of way people tell stories and consume stories. And like those things, we think that, our subscription model might be a better way to do that. So we're excited about doing it. We're going to do it slow. We've got a title coming up late in the summer that will give people a sense of where we're heading with it. And we'll take it slow. In general, I'd say, this is going to be a walk before you run. We're investing in great creators to bring gaming to our members as part of what they do. And I think there are young people today who spend a lot more time gaming than I used to. And that's probably going to be part of their life as they grow older, and that it's going to be more integrated into the way that they use their screen. So it'll be, I'm not thinking about it as a way to displace movie watching or TV watching. It'll just be part of the things that they do with their screen. And we want to be part of that exciting part. And it's much closer to film and TV than people suspect at its creative core.
Yeah, I really panicked because I don't know anything about gaming. And I was like, oh my God, where will the stories go? But you're saying it's not displacing anything. It's all going to be part of the same offering.
Yeah, think about, how we got into interactive with Bandersnatch. We had that interactive episode of Black Mirror. I think this is all on the continuum of how to bring the benefits of the internet to different kinds of storytelling. And some of it's world expanding, some of it's world creation. But it is all variants of storytelling.
You're also setting up a very exciting post-production facility, and the first of its kind is going to be in Mumbai. What led to that decision? Why Mumbai?
Well, it is our first owned and operated post-production facility in the world. We're opening in Mumbai because we've got a lot of work to do in Mumbai. We've got a lot of we're going to help drive new technologies in post-production that will be used and applied to our productions around the world, starting in Mumbai. It'll be the working model for the first phase of Netflix post-production, which we're super excited about it. There's incredible artists, post-production artists in India and we have lots of work to keep them busy. So it's a great place to start, and we're really thrilled as our ongoing commitment to original programming and film and television in India is to make this kind of first infrastructure investment in post-production there.
Very exciting. And hopefully by the time it opens, you will be able to fly here.
Yes, absolutely. Before
we let you go, I have to ask you, what is the strangest place that someone has pitched a show or a film to you?
I get pitched almost every day, so that's a hard one to answer. What's strange, because I don't go to too many strange places, I hope. But we were at a very remote place where we had on a vacation, and we were in a rental property, and I'm on the balcony looking out at the ocean, thinking it's just me in the whole world, and then I hear somebody on a balcony from the house next door shouting a pitch to me. So
no way.
yes. And it's pretty common. It's funny about the whole process of being pitched to. It's somebody gives people the advice that if you ever see that person, you better take your shot because you may never see them again. And it's like,
which is true.
There's truth to it. So what I would say is the advice I would give folks is a good thing to say is, hey, I know this isn't the right place to do this, but could I call you, or could you email me at this thing or something, versus doing the whole pitch in the middle of the meal, which sometimes comes up a lot. But I mean, I've been out to dinner with my wife, and someone will tap me on the shoulder and then start pitching while I'm having dinner with my wife. And I said, look, I really want to hear your story. Can you please, I'll give them my card. Would you please just email me and we'll set up a call? And they, they're very passionate about this. In some cases, they think it's their only shot. It typically is not their only shot, but it feels like it. And I could definitely appreciate the passion that goes into it. But I don't think a day goes by that I'm not pitched in line for coffee, or at a meal, or on a walk, or in some cases on a balcony over a beach.
Finally, you interacted with so many storytellers from so many different parts of the world. What do you think is the one quality that they share? What do you see in great storytellers everywhere?
Besides my besides loving film as much as I do, the other art form that I really respect is stand-up comedy. Every time I can, I try to remind people that it really is an art. And the thing about it, and the thing they have in common, great stand-up comedians, by the way, a lot of great directors love stand-up comedians. And I think what they have in common is everyone in the world is looking at the same thing. And the comedian sees the funny thing that you missed. And I think in a way, directors do that too, which is but they look at that same thing we're all looking at, and they see the funny part, they see the sinister part, they see the sad part. They have a way of seeing things that the audience, for the audience, that they might have missed on their own. So I think the thing that they have in common is they have the ability to see things for the world that they may not see at first glance.
And have you ever considered directing yourself?
In a pipe dream way, not something, nothing that will ever come to fruition, I'm sure. But it's the idea of being able to, I mean, it's to me, it's like, it would be like for me in the role that I sit in and the people that I get to work with, it would be like going to the Louvre and saying, I think I'd like to paint. But I just so admire the contribution. I so admire the contribution to culture that directors have, that I would be way too intimidated to actually try to pull it off myself.
Well, Ted, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for making the time again. And really, I hope we can do this next time in person.
I promise we'll do it in person. I'm coming.
Absolutely.